Good evening and welcome to this breaking news live stream. Welcome. This is On the Pen. If you're just joining us for the first time, we're live on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Thank you for joining us. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and the thumbs up button if you're just joining. We've got some breaking news to get into in the OFA versus FDA and Eli Lilly lawsuit going on right now. Ladies and gentlemen, Novo Nordisk has entered the chat. Yeah, you heard that right. Novo Nordisk joining Eli Lilly and the FDA here. So let's get into what has happened here in the last about hour. This is broken. There's an article up at onthepen.com. Of course there is, because that's where patients go to get news about GLP-1s and anti-obesity medication that impacts them. That's the number one place on the internet that they go. So if you're not there, jump over there on thepen.com. The article's the first thing listed there. Scroll to the very bottom of the page and just take 10 seconds to sign up for email alerts. If you're not subscribed, make sure you subscribe wherever you are watching. Please, we would love to have you along for this ride. We cover the news as it happens, and this is no different tonight. So let's get into it. So what happened? Well, Novo Nordisk has filed an amicus brief or an amicus brief in support of their largest competitor, Eli Lilly, in the ongoing lawsuit between the Outsourcing Facilities Association and the FDA. Novo Nordisk is siding with the FDA, obviously, and Eli Lilly in their effort to shut down compounded versions of Tirzepatide, arguing that the products are unsafe, unregulated, unnecessary. Now the commercial supply has stabilized. Lots of air quotes there. And if you smell what I'm stepping in here, they are in it thick. The filing adds another layer of to an already heated legal battle over access, regulation, and the bottom line here for me, as far as I'm concerned, the bottom line is the true definition of a drug shortage. So Novo's argument in their amicus brief is built on the idea that compounded GLP-1 drugs are a danger, that they're an inherent danger to patients. Novo's words, not my own. The company warns that compounders do not follow the same manufacturing standards as commercial drug makers, factually correct, leading to products that may be inconsistent or in potency or contaminated with harmful substances. Their brief highlights the past incidents in which compounded drugs have caused public health crises and emphasizes that the compounded semaglutide and tirzepatide formulations are particularly risky because they do not use the same recombinant DNA technology as the FDA-approved versions. Actually, tirzepatide is not made recombinantly, but semaglutide is. Novo also takes direct aim at the compounding industry's claims that shortages, this is my favorite part, shortages justify continued production. The company argues that while individual pharmacies may experience temporary supply issues, that this does not constitute a national shortage that would legally permit large-scale compounding. They accuse the compounding industry of using anecdotal patient reports. Who else are they supposed to get this information from but the people that are trying to find the medication and cannot? They accuse the data of being unreliable and misleading, and they are basically saying that they can meet commercial demand. Novo further claims that compounders have misrepresented the FDA's stance on enforcement discretion. Novo says compounders have framed the agency's inaction as an endorsement of compound GLP-1s. How could it not be? If the FDA could step in and stop it, don't you think they would if they thought this was a massive public health risk? The reality is millions of people are treating the chronic disease of obesity and not developing heart disease, not developing type 2 diabetes, not developing osteoarthritis, potentially slowing the delay of early onset Alzheimer's, potentially reversing alcohol use disorder. I think that they've calculated that just fine. when in reality, the FDA has put out warnings about the risks of compounded medications. Of course, they have, because compounds are not all created equal. And there has been a campaign, a fierce campaign on the part of Big Pharma to blur the lines between FDA regulated 503B pharmacies, State Board of Pharmacy regulated 503A pharmacies, and this gray market bathtub nonsense that goes on in the dark corners of the internet. This is perhaps the most interesting line from the entire amicus brief. The brief calls the marketing of compounded semaglutide and tirzepatide the largest uncontrolled and unconsented human experiment of our time. I just want you to let that sink in for a minute. And just think if there was maybe any other example of a time where the FDA allowed things to go on that were somewhat experimental, maybe didn't go through clinical trials. I don't know. Probably stepping in it there. But let's just say that's an interesting take by Novo Nordisk. Novo is urging the court to deny the OFA's request for a preliminary injunction that would allow compounding to continue while the case plays out. They argue that granting the injunction would undermine the FDA's authority and keep what they deem unsafe products on the market. The judge in this case could rule on the preliminary injunction as early as February 25th. That is when basically what happened today, in addition to this amicus brief being filed, was the FDA also responded to the OFA's motion for the preliminary injunction. Today was a deadline for that. The FDA did file that, but it's all redacted. So we don't really have any news for you there other than it's there, but that sets off another 7 days, right? Before the OFA can respond back, or I'm sorry, that the OFA has to respond back, at which point the judge could issue an immediate ruling. There's no hearing set on the preliminary injunction, but what the court has telegraphed here, sort of the judge in this case, is that he doesn't want this thing to stick around on his docket. He wants this to go away because he knows wherever it's going to end up, it's going to end up in an appeals court. So I think that we'll see likely the judge just move to make a ruling on the preliminary injunction on February 25th. We'll see if the OFA responds before that. I doubt they will, but February 25th is what we're watching, or within maybe a week of that. For sure, we'll have some news. For Novo's part, they're obviously gearing up for a potential fight of their own, as the FDA's decision to remove semaglutide from the master shortage list also looms sort of ominously on the horizon for people relying on compounded versions of GLP-1s. This impending decision has significant implications not only for Novo Nordisk, but for patients who rely on these medications to manage ongoing chronic conditions like obesity and type 2 diabetes. For several months now, Novo has actively reported to the FDA that commercially available Ozempic and Wegovy are widely available and that they're not in an FDA shortage. But the FDA has sort of delayed their decision on this. Now, they moved very quickly with Tirzepatide. Within weeks of Eli Lilly reporting the shortage was over, they made the ruling, and that sort of kicked off this whole thing that we're talking about. They have not moved on semaglutide. So that is interesting, and definitely, I think, Novo's very public way of saying you need to remove semaglutide too. So the timeline as it relates to the continued availability of compounded tirzepatide has been somewhat unpredictable from the start here, because we've had shifting enforcement discretion from the FDA and some unexpected turns in how the agency is communicated to industry trade organizations, notably the Alliance for Pharmacy Compounding, that had sort of interpreted an email from the FDA as being, that they weren't going to enforce anything for the duration of the trial. There was, some clarifying information that came out last week. We covered this all on the channel. That's why you need to subscribe. You need to get email alerts. We covered this all, but the FDA put out some clarifying information, basically said, we're going to hold off on the dates that we gave you at the beginning of the trial. One of them was today, February 18th for 503A pharmacies, and then March 19th for 503B pharmacies. They basically said, we're going to wait for the preliminary injunction ruling whichever comes later, right? The dates or the preliminary injunction. So I think we'll get a preliminary injunction ruling before March 19th. And so obviously today is a relative moot point. We covered that all in today's podcast, available wherever you get your podcast. We covered this all. But that means February 25th is not just another procedural moment in this case. It actually could be the point where compounding is either temporarily protected for the duration of this trial, or it's effectively banned outside of the handful of 503 regulatory loopholes that exist to allow custom formulations, custom dosing, which some pharmacies have already signaled they will continue to mass produce them for patients in custom formulations, custom dosings. You're seeing all sorts of different presentations now, patches, oral tinctures. You're seeing all sorts of wild stuff out there. And that's why, that's what they're going to move to, exploit these loopholes, try to keep medications in the hands of patients, even if these methods are not tested, right? The drops really get me. So we'll have to see what they're willing to do in the face of potential threats from Eli Lilly legally, because we know that's coming. But with this filing tonight, essentially Novo has aligned itself with Eli Lilly and the FDA. No real big surprise. But this has become a direct challenge to the compounding industry's role in the obesity and diabetes market. The court's ruling will decide whether compound tirzepatide remains available, but the larger fight over regulatory control and patient access is far from over. Novo's involvement simply signals that the drug manufacturers see this case as a key battleground in maintaining their hold on the obesity market. And whatever happens on February 25th will be just the beginning. This is going to go on in the court system. We're going to hear a lot on this in the near future. Of course, we'll be covering it all very, very closely here at onthepen.com. Whoo! How we all doing tonight? We've got a lot of folks in the chat. I hope you've hit that thumbs up button. If you're watching here, I hope that you have hit the subscribe button. And I hope more than anything that you've gone over to onthepen.com and signed up for email alerts. That is literally, you don't always have time to sit down and watch me blabbering in front of the camera, but we are constantly dropping articles at onthepen.com for you, the patients, because if you're new to On the Pen, what we do here is we take all the information that flows about anti-obesity medication, which is usually either for doctors or people in the medical field, or it's for investors. We take all that information that flows down and we give it back to you in a very patient-centric way so that you can take that information and have more competent and confident conversations with your medical prescribing team, with your pharmacist, et cetera, et cetera. We just are all about empowering people with information to live the best version of themselves. That's what we do. And as a couple of side notes here, I would like to let everybody know, you see the book here in the background, the giant book. We did get our book back. We got our book back from Amazon in a wild move this weekend. I got an email after several saying that they were not going to restore it. It has been restored. So you can jump over to glpbook.com today. I have dropped the price for the next few days to $10. I don't know, big tech giveth and big tech taketh away. And so I wanted to be able to get this book into as many hands as possible. So we'll see how long it stays up. I hope forever. I hope we're never having this stupid conversation again. I hope it's just there for people to get. But I have made it as affordable as I can for you. $10 a book. I want to say that the Kindle Reader version is like $5. And if you have Kindle Unlimited, you can read it there for free. So it's available. glpbook.com will get you to the landing page on Amazon there. I hope that you'll check it out. Thank you for those who have. If you haven't, consider giving it a review while we're there. I believe that from the community are really what helped to save this book at the end of the day. So thank you for those who have ordered. Thank you for those who have left reviews. Thank you for those who are subscribed and following along. You make this worth it. I couldn't, wouldn't, and shouldn't do it without you. Thank you for being here tonight, and thank you for being the best part of what we do here at On the Pen. If you ordered a book while it was down from me personally, my personal stash, they all went out last week except for maybe two. And so you should be seeing those arrive in the mail this week. Probably the Monday was obviously a holiday, so you should be seeing them any day. If you don't see them by the end of the week, please shoot me an email at davidonthepen.com. I've got a whole new batch coming because we were able to order some as soon as this came back up on Amazon. So with that, I'm going to cut you loose. Wanted to give you the update tonight. Any more updates, they'll be available tonight at onthepen.com. You heard it here first, folks. This is where you get the news for GLP-1. We're the OGs in GLP-1 news from the patient perspective. Thank you for being here, and we will catch you on the next one.